I didn't like what I saw. Thumbs down. Okay, so that means I get thumbs down your comment because I didn't like what I read too. How to Jaime. Introduce with a drinking joke, read the news, end with whatever, Rivera multiple times. And, you know, you almost got it right. You're actually just missing one tiny little bit. Who writes your jokes? That's voice. Are they that bad? That's right, it's that time of the week. I am Jaime Rivera. This is Pocket Now, and this is the Pocketnow Daily Recap for last week. So on Monday, the news were about the iPhone 7. There were rumors about a device without a 3.5mm headphone jack, and I asked you if that is important to you. We had 1,479 comments. Thanks a lot, guys. They better offer some really good wireless earpods then, and you know, audiophiles will tell you that it's not the same audio quality and yada yada yada. There is a protocol over the lightning cable, and obviously audiophiles are not going to like that as well. I'm not an audiophile, so I'll just take Bluetooth headset as well, just like you. Terrible idea. And on another note, I hate the thin impossible thing that Apple and other OEMs are doing. I want a big battery, way more than a thin phone. You know, I do value the thin design as phones get bigger. Like, for example, I'm using the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, and the phone is just so thin that regardless of how big it is, you really don't feel it that way in your hand. And that's extremely important, but then again, yeah, not at the expense of battery life. Focusing on slim design by sacrificing an important part of the device is just plain dumb. Eliminating the headphone jack would feel more like I'm downgrading instead of upgrading to a better phone. How the heck will I charge and use headphones at the same time? The saddest part is that people will applaud it and say it's innovation and brilliant. And you know what? Hey, the Oppo R5 didn't include a headphone jack. Many Windows mobile devices didn't include a headphone jack. And as a matter of fact, the headphone jack returned with the first generation iPhone to smartphones. I do get your point. I don't feel that it's a downgrade. I feel that the 3.5mm headphone jack is old. And I do agree with you. I don't want that same adapter mentality that Apple has, like with the first MacBook. I feel that there should be a new 3.5mm headphone jack that's thinner. I think that should be the future. Obviously, there will be a transition towards that, and there should be adapters for that at the beginning, but I do feel that we should not just use one port in your defense, but then again, I do feel that phones can get thinner and the protocol can evolve. On Tuesday, well, we had more news about iPhone prototypes. We heard that there was one without a 3.5mm headphone jack, another with a Touch ID embedded in the display, then we had another with USB Type-C, and so many other cases, and I asked you, which one of all would you pick, as apparently this was not just one phone. We had 625 comments we start with. Fingerprint scanner on the display. It would be crazy awesome, and after a few months, Samsung would do the same. And I would love that too, particularly because iPhones have terrible bezels. They really need to evolve in that as displays and devices get larger. I feel that that is the way to go for Apple to continue with their whatever one-handed usability mentality, and I think that would be the smarter prototype too. I choose the one using USB Type-C, but I can't see Apple ditching Lightning connectors just yet. And you know, even though USB Type-C is more usable than the Lightning port, I don't see Apple doing that as well, at least not now. I'd vote for that iPhone prototype with a huge battery and micro SD card slot, which there was any. If existed, but really USB Type-C should be a standard everywhere in my humble opinion. And I also like the idea of a fingerprint scanner on the display. 3D touch for multiple fingers sounds a bit cumbersome though, and yes, there was another prototype that will allow multi-touch with 3D touch, and just think about that. You'd have to force touch with 2 fingers or 3 fingers, and yes, that was cumbersome. But again, I don't feel that USB Type-C is happening, particularly because, well, Lightning is actually a business. There is a built for iPhone protocol, and obviously the Lightning port has a lot to do with that, and Apple makes money over that. Wednesday, the news were about the recent CEO swaps at Samsung and what the company was doing to pick itself up, even though it wasn't on the floor. And I asked you, what would you change from future Galaxy smartphones that could help Samsung regain its limelight? We had 1,138 comments. Thanks a lot again, guys. We start with launch less phones. And you know, somebody made a point yesterday that was extremely important in the comments. The biggest problem when you have so many Galaxy phones that use the Galaxy brand is that you dilute the mindset of the consumer, and they don't see Galaxy phones as premium because obviously there are a lot of cheap Galaxy phones out there. So in that mentality, in that retrospect, I feel that if either Samsung would rebrand their lower end phones and keep the Galaxy lineup for the expensive ones, I think that would be a smart idea, or then just launch less phones, as you say. Samsung running stock Android would definitely make me consider getting one of their products. And you know, I felt that way about Android KitKat and before that, and then after that Lollipop, even though looking good, doesn't really perform any better. I kind of disagree. I feel that TouchWiz does perform really well with these new batch of Galaxy. IPS rating, expandable storage, no TouchWiz, and maybe some sort of a 3D touch. Keep dreaming. But because Apple's doing it, it could be the case. Then on Thursday, the news were about how many people were switching from Android to iPhones after the launch of the iPhone 6s, which is another record. And I asked you, why do you think people are moving away from Android devices towards iPhones lately? And we broke records, 2,717 comments. That's a first, by the way. Thanks a lot, guys. We start with people switching to the iPhone because it seems simple to use and also good show-off accessory in developing countries. And that is the case at least in my country and in developing countries. I do agree. A lot of people feel that the iPhone is a status symbol, and even though it's not a better product, it is something flashier in society. Sadly, people are switching to the iPhone because it's an iPhone. It's nothing more than just a status symbol. iPhone is really overpriced device. That's why people think that if they have an iPhone in their hand, they can show off they're rich. Yeah, again, the status symbol argument, but it's not only happening with iPhones. There are other phones, like the new batch of Galaxy phones. The Edge devices are also something that's sort of a status symbol. I do get your point. Most of these switchers were in the United States, and I don't feel that that's necessarily the case in the United States. People, please remember that Android is on very cheap devices. Many people in my area own cheap Android, and most give Android a bad reputation because of their first experience with Android is cheap, laggy, outdated, and just bad. Clearly not the case with the flagship Androids. So they think that the high-end Android would be the same, save money, and switch to iOS. You have a very interesting point. Yes, here in this country where I live on, you can find Android devices for $40, $50. And I'm not talking about Android One, I'm talking about the basic Android. So the performance is terrible, the displays are bad, and you're right, people have a very bad mindset about Android because of the way it's just diluted on very cheap products. The same happens with Windows Phone because the most popular Lumias are the very cheap ones. And there's nothing aspirational about Android because of that. You make a very solid point, and I feel that Apple has nailed that down, particularly because their cheap phones suck, by the way. And then finally, Friday, I asked you if you liked the new Microsoft. We had Steve Ballmer on record complaining about the new Microsoft, saying that their mentality and what they're doing is not the right thing. And I want to know if you like the new one or the old one under Steve Ballmer. We had 413 comments we start with. I think the new Microsoft is amazing. Windows 10, the Lumias, Cortana, Xbox game sales, Surface Pro, Surface Book, just amazing. Yes, I think everybody at Pocketnow agrees. This new breath at Microsoft is just awesome. A lot of innovation, really great products. Things that I'm sure Microsoft could feel proud of because we consumers like them. That is a really good way to start. Steve Ballmer is a price clown. It's because of him that Microsoft is in such dire position in the smartphone OS space. Anyone who listens to him is and I'm not even going to say that, but you do have a solid point. Steve Ballmer completely underestimated a lot of things, and he made a lot of jokes out of them, out of which some of these are memes, others are just hilarious points on YouTube. You're right, sadly he's not really famous for making Microsoft any better, but you have to remember that he was pretty much in charge of Microsoft for a good amount of time. Even during the Bill Gates days, it was really Ballmer that was doing a lot of the stuff. Satya is doing a great job. Microsoft is being presented in a fresh breath of air. People want Microsoft products now, and there is innovation. Steve is time's over. He's so 90s, and actually he would be so 2000s, but you're right. Satya Nadella has infused a lot of very positive changes. Some negative, like for example the layoffs, I don't like. I feel that Microsoft is making enough money to have kept its people, but then again, at least they're focusing on things and they're doing them right. I'm actually using Microsoft Outlook now, something I would have not considered a year ago. I had such a bad mindset about Microsoft products because of the whole tarnish that came from the Steve Ballmer days. So again, I feel that Satya still has a lot more to do to clean up the mess that was left, but I feel that things are going in the right direction. True. That's it for the Pocketnow Daily Recap. Thank you very much for watching. A couple of tips if you want your comments to be featured. Number 1, keep them short. Number 2, stick to the point. Number 3, try to get some thumbs up. It helps us spot them a lot easier. You can also follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can follow me on Twitter, Jaime_Rivera, on Instagram at Jaime Rivera. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I am Jaime Rivera. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.